Hey everyone, it's Dr. Romani. Welcome back to this YouTube channel on narcissism and narcissistic relationships. I hate to say one of my videos is going to be dumb because it's a little out of date, but I think it's worth sharing if you bear with me. So here we go. And I tend to put myself down, but all of this said, it's a little out of date, so pay attention. So I was trying to get some mindless stuff the other day done, like some laundry folding. So to keep me company, I had the TV on in the background. And usually at those times, I'll watch something I don't need to watch with my whole mind. And what I'm about to talk about in this video is old news because this show had finished several months ago. It's the Sex and the City reboot that's called And Just Like That, right? And I'm going to spoil the show because it's worth it for me to spoil the show to make the point in this video. It really wasn't that great. And it's a perfect laundry show because you can watch it with like 40% of your brain, and you should have watched it by now. And if you haven't, I'm just going to have to set the scene because it's the only way I can help you understand what this video is about, which I think is so important, and this episode did it really well. So most of the characters on this show are moderately narcissistic with very few exceptions. But the key protagonist, Carrie, is a pretty narcissistic lady. And in the story, as it unfolds, she's widowed and she's dating again about a year after her husband's passing. She's had some mixed luck. Remember, she doesn't have kids. She doesn't have any other responsibilities. She has tons of money. So she also has lots of time on her hands. And she takes very good care of herself. So this is not looking like a woman in her 50s who's really sort of exhausted. This is a woman who sort of like looks like she's in her prime. So she runs into her ex-boyfriend, Aiden, who back in the day was a fan favorite, the sort of handsome, nice guy who made furniture. He seemed like an offset to the narcissistic arrogance of the guy, Big, that Carrie would go on to marry. But Aiden shows his toxicity in a very different way and shows us how narcissists sneak up on us. So I'm going to use this storyline to teach you about a narcissistic manipulation that is going to be easy to miss until it's too late. And it plays on the vulnerabilities created in these relationships. So in the show, sorry to spoil it, Carrie and Aiden get back together. And they're besotted with each other. And almost in the sort of mode of, oh, we made a mistake, we should have gotten married all those years ago. But in the ensuing period that they both married different people, Aiden himself also got married, right? He got married to a woman, they had 3 children together. Now he's separated. That's how they got together. So Carrie and Aiden date and come together. Aiden had a broken heart all those years ago with Carrie because Carrie cheated on him with that man she would go on to marry and then who goes on to die. And Aiden still harbors wounds around that infidelity, but seems to have gotten past them because now he's back in a relationship with her. She lived in her single gal apartment when the cheating happened all those years ago. And then after her husband died, she moved back to her single girl apartment. And that was also the apartment where Aiden learned about the affair. They were standing there when she told him. So as Aiden and Carrie come back for their reunion relationship, he tells her pointedly, it's too painful for him to come back up to the apartment. It would be too triggering, too overwhelming, too painful. Learning of the infidelity was the most painful thing, and being there at the scene would just be too much for him. So she honors that. And since she has bottomless pits of money, they stay in fancy New York hotels and order room service and have lots of sex, and it's all great. But even for somebody who has endless pots of money, that starts getting financially unwieldy and irresponsible. And so they try to stay in a short-term rental situation, but that's not formally approved with her friend, and then that gets found out and they get kicked out. So Carrie needs to find a new place for them in New York City for them to be. That is not her original apartment. He lives someplace else, so he comes in to see her long distance. Of course, because money is never an issue for her, she finds a spectacular apartment with 4 bedrooms that is worth many millions of dollars, and she impulsively decides to buy it. She also decides to sell her old apartment, since now that it looks like she's going to spend the rest of her life with Aiden, well, she can't hold on to a place that he's never going to enter, so that's its own story. So she gets the fabulous apartment, and then she decides to throw a dinner party to say goodbye to her single gal apartment that was such a through line in her entire life and in the early versions of this television series. He, of course, because he's so traumatized by her apartment, he, of course, won't come to the party. Again, it's in the forbidden trauma apartment. And at the same time, he is having some ordeal with his ex-wife and one of his children. Carrie is sort of having this trauma-bonded reaction to this whole Aiden situation. She's constantly accommodating his schedule and his needs, and then ultimately buys the expensive apartment because it has multiple bedrooms to also accommodate his kids. So here is where the manipulation comes in. I hope I laid the scene so the story makes sense. Remember, this guy Aiden refused to enter the original apartment. It was too painful, too traumatic, too much. His fragility could not enter it or handle it. And she accommodates that. She sells it. Okay, that was a very kind thing in many ways for her to do. But then he finally does come up to the apartment. He is finally willing to enter the place that caused him so much pain. She sold it, but she's still happy that he would do this, that he would be oh so brave as to be willing to come into the scary apartment. But the reason he finally agreed to come into the apartment, to do this thing that she'd been asking him to do for the duration of this new sex-filled relationship with him, and she apologized profusely and all the rest of it. He did get into the relationship with her. I mean, he knew the history. It was water under the bridge. He was married, and he got married and had kids. The dude she cheated on with him, she married him, and now he's dead. I'm not pushing that. Everyone feels their feels, but there's like a lot for this dude to hold on to. But it's his experience. I'm going to validate that. But he finally agrees to come up to the apartment. And the reason he came up was like, he said he wanted to ask her to do something. Of course, you've come up to the apartment. I'll do what you want. He wanted to take a 5-year break in the relationship. Yes, you heard that right. A 5-year break. Not 5 weeks, not 5 months, 5 years. Apparently his kid was struggling and acting out, and he needed to focus on him, which I understand. But 5 years is not a break. It's a breakup. And his manipulation just kept going as he was trying to pitch what they have as such a special love story that it would be fine. For him, the break was for him, right? This 5-year break. And his grand concession was that he walked up a flight of stairs to an apartment that made him anxious and that he would never have to enter again. That's the trade-off. I came up a flight of stairs and now I want you on ice for 5 years. Imbalance is a hallmark of every narcissistic relationship, even if both people are. However, because he was making an unreasonable ask, basically asking her to put herself on ice until well past menopause, that's what it took for this dude to finally agree to come up to the apartment. It was a major dick move. It was the ultimate bait and switch. Mr. Scaredy Pants got past his fear when he could trade on this to drop a bomb on her. Okay, so let's break the actual manipulation down, because this is where it could apply to a variety of situations. Narcissistic folks are great at stonewalling. They are as stubborn and oppositional as the day is long. And once they set one of their limits or their boundaries, which of course we all have to honor, there's no going around it. To keep the relationship going, you have to accede to their demands, even if their demands are unreasonable. And it becomes a strange sort of test of, if you love me, you will do this. And many of us do and have and keep doing it, even if it is expensive or impractical or just not even authentic to who we are. But when they need something that is actually quite unreasonable, they will give in on that original thing they were stonewalling about to get the unreasonable thing they want. It plays on the sense of, for you, you might think, oh, I'm so happy they came around on this thing. They held out for so long. In this case, for her, it was going to her old apartment, that they then hit the person between the eyes with the unreasonable thing. And a person is so confused because they're so happy they stopped stonewalling that people may agree. It's gaslighting at the highest level, breaking through the stonewall, leaving you to believe that they're compromising, and then dropping a bomb on you. Examples of this out of the unreality of a TV show about rich, entitled people would be, here's an example. You're desperate for your spouse to spend one holiday with your family who's not able to travel. Every year they refuse and they rage at you. I'm not going there. And one year they finally agree. And you're so happy about it and you think you got through to them. And on that year, during that holiday with your family, is the year they announce They took a new job that's going to force you and your kids and everyone to move to a new place, but they never consulted with you. Well, I mean, it's all about compromise, right? I came to see your family for the holidays. See, I understand compromise. And now you should compromise too by uprooting a family on a decision you were never consulted about that's going to change all of your lives, okay? This idea, this massive bait and switch based on a stone wall, is a classic play. And when they pulled it out on this show, I actually stopped folding the laundry to replay it and thought, that manipulative piece of you-know-what. I don't like Carrie either, so I think I missed the manipulation the first time. But whether I like her or not doesn't matter. It was a manipulation. And his so-called mortal fear of entering the apartment magically disappeared when he needed to turn the relationship into a one-sided, my schedule or nothing situation. And he could play it as, see, ultimately I loved you so much I made the compromise. I entered the apartment, which she had already sold, and had already spent a fortune on a new one that she now had to live in alone. And then his attitude is, what? I made a compromise. I came up a flight of stairs, so why can't you wait for me for 5 years? I guess in a way that was a relationship made in heaven, right? It's always good when the narcissistic folks find each other. I have no doubt that some of you have had this kind of massive level bait and switch happen, but be aware that somebody being stubborn and then using that to their advantage by giving in and then dropping a bomb into your life is a mega, mega gaslight move. And you want to know more about gaslighting and how to heal from this, especially when you have to deal with those mega manipulations, please check out my new book coming out in February called It's Not You. You can pre-order it now. Thanks again.